Slowly working on it,
Cool.
yeah. I'll just let me know.
Sounds good.
I'll try and do it.
Good.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're recording.
Hey, welcome guys. A couple of thank yous first. First of all, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know everyone's about 130%. So thank you for taking the time to come and listen to my busy stuff. I guess Russ, also thank you to you for getting this group off the ground. It's a great initiative. It's good to see some of the backing from the staff here as well. Good work on last week as well. Again, I think we all learned something that we may not have known, and it's also good having people who come from outside of Wintec and not through the Wintec system to show us how things are done elsewhere. So credit to you. Unlike you, who have spent 3 or so years on your PhD, I'm currently sitting about a month on this. So things have happened quite fast, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Not trying to make excuses here, but the good thing about that is today I'm open to change, and that's kind of where you guys come in, bringing in your expertise in your fields and your opinions on this particular topic is what I'm actually here for, is to get your rundown of what I could improve, some of the good parts, or maybe some of the things that you can see being an obstacle for me with this master's proposal. Okay. So to start us off, now this title, please do not judge on this. This is a moving thing at the moment. This is just something we've got down, myself's got down to kind of cover the broad basis of what we're looking at here. Long story short, I have a goal, and that goal is to make a group of kids faster. Now that's something that's been used, like this topic, as we looked at heaps and heaps of different times, making someone faster. I get that. Now your personal trainers, your strength and conditioners and whatnot, working in the gyms, different programs to make people faster. However, the way I'm looking to do it is a slightly different approach. And I've kind of come across this term, a movement specialist. A movement specialist. Someone who's concerned with the movement and how people move. Now I want to apply this concept of movement and sport and apply it to these runners themselves. For something a little bit different. I'm going to coach a bunch of kids to make them faster. Instead of training them, we're looking to coach them. There's a bit of a difference there that we'll talk about later. Not only this, but I'm also going to have a look at the underlying mechanisms around this. So if we have made them faster, or even if we haven't, we want to understand why. So that's the big questions there. Now this topic incorporates 2 of my passions, one being coaching, the other being performance analysis. I never was really one to choose my path through my degree, but these seem to be the 2 strands that I've come across in the end here, so we try to incorporate both into that. Now you have to understand I've had a tough time trying to organise these slides. I've got all these ideas going on in my head, and Franz and I talked about it the other day, that you've got to get stuck in your bubble with research and all this stuff going on, and then try to explain it simply to someone else is quite a tough task, especially in a short time period. So we'll see how we go. If you do have questions, please write notes as we go. I may answer questions later on the slides, so we'll just roll with it, and at the end maybe we can have a bit of a share of thoughts and ideas, if that's okay. So, a bit of background about myself and why I'm interested in this topic. First of all, I've been working in athletics coaching for 7+ years. And I think everyone can agree here that as a coach, or even more so as a coach, as well as a sports scientist, I think we all look at things a little bit differently than a lot of the normal people, or not coaches or not sports scientists. Great example is, we went to the league last week, and everyone's sitting there watching the game, and we've got our group of sports scientists there who are talking about the distances they're running and the speeds they're running at and the forces on impact. It was quite a good thing to see that we do look at things differently. Exactly. Exactly. And what I've noticed in my years in athletics is that I've seen a big improvement in particularly young people's movements. So they turn up to the track at early high school, in the primary even, and then intermediate age, where they come to the track and they just cannot move very well. Through my eyes and my interpretation, they're not very effective at general movements. This has kind of been re-emphasised with some of the work we've done through Wintec in different schooling scenarios. Through one testing procedure, I remember with Pete, we were standing there one day doing a pre-test with a whole lot of young children, and I stood there and I went, man, it doesn't matter what you do with these guys. I said, you give me half an hour and I'll improve these results because of the lack of segment sequencing, coordination, and just general moving. It was very poor. Now, why is this the case? I know there's been a lot of initiatives through Sport Waikato and whatnot trying to get people moving. We've done stuff in schools, we've done stuff before high school age. They've identified this trend as well, in particular the fundamental movements of your running, jumping and throwing. Questions around why, I don't know. I haven't found that out yet. Could be a couple of things here. Is it simply because of the technology that's coming through at the moment? Are they not getting out and moving enough? Are they not playing enough? Is it simply a lack of coaching? Maybe they're doing the movements but not knowing how to do them right. Or is it simply a lack of coordination? This picture here kind of sums up my story. So you can see these kids here are out doing stuff on the track, running, that's great. They've got the hurdle drills, doing the right stuff. But if you look at how they're doing it, technically now it's terrible. We've got limbs and arms everywhere, we've got guys, no idea what's going on. So maybe it's not what they're doing, maybe it's how they're doing it, or how it's being implemented. And that's what we want to look at. So obviously, based on what I've just stated, we have a particular population that I'd like to target. Now, we have a relationship with a particular school at the moment that we're looking to hopefully get into. And that is kind of the reason why we're looking at only male, year 9 and 10, so that real early high school age. Their schooling system means that they've only got males at that age. So that's why we're not both genders there. And typically these boys will be aged 12 to 14, give or take. And there's two reasons why I want to target this particular age group. The first one is around this window of speed. Now there's some research out there that suggests that certain performance aspects such as your speed, your agility, strength, flexibility, all have their ideal windows that they should be trained. You get the maximum optimal gains from that particular period. Now there's two speed windows. There's one really early on, and the second one happens to fall within this age group here. So looking across here, we have our second speed window between the ages of about 12 and 15. The reasons for this, just briefly, obviously around this time, we also have our peak height velocity period where these guys are going through their growth spurts. So again, for guys, that's kind of around that 12 to 14 mark as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that period later. But during this window of opportunity, and because of that peak height velocity that they're in and around, there's certain physiological things that we see. We see an increase in muscle size and length through puberty, hormone changes, enzyme changes, which means those anaerobic energy systems are being developed during this period as well. We see an increase in muscle tendon stiffness and also neural factors and firing rates as well. So all of these things are being developed through this stage. And my logic is that if we can target to do it right now, perform the right movements during this stage, we no longer have to break that down and reformat it later. We're teaching them right the first time. So with this population of year 9 and 10s at high school, the intervention I want to implement is a 6 weeks coaching implementation where we're looking around the fundamental movements associated with sprinting. Right, and there's some quite old literature that talks about how sprinting should be done at a base level. And at first glance, I haven't been able to find anything more relevant in terms of the years. Okay, at a high performance level, by all means, there is plenty of research. But at that base level of what a basic sprint technique looks like, we're still looking at the same stuff they were 20, 30 years ago. So I've got a bit more research to do there. So with these guys, the 6 weeks of coaching, and ideally what I want to do is to split these guys into 2 groups who we're going to run concurrently through this training program. We're going to have one group who's going to be based around a more traditional coaching style, which is going to be based around those sprint movements. So we're looking at things like your drills, repetition, and doing the movement correctly. It's kind of that traditional style. The other group we're going to look at is doing similar focus, so similar coaching points, but presenting it in a very different way. We use this game sense term here where the movements are more around having fun and enjoyment and incorporating these things into more of a fun environment as opposed to a training environment. some examples here, I talked about, one of our fundamental things might be the fact that we need to get our knees up nice and high during sprinting. For a traditional approach, you'll take them through your marching drills, skipping drills, and then running over hurdles, traditional style stuff there. The game sense environment might be simply things like incorporating a ball, doing hackies with your knee. You're running around in the ground thinking the ground's lava, you've got to get your feet up nice and quick. Running around doing animal movements that incorporate big high knees. So we're incorporating the same fundamental movements, but framing it in a very different way. Again, our group sizes we're looking at ideally towards the upper end of these two values here, but that's really going to depend on, first of all, the school and the availability of these students, and secondly, the amount of return we get. Obviously, being a younger age group, we have to apply to be able to use their data and use these individuals. So it's going to be based around those two factors. So just a bit more visual representation here. We're going to pre-test and post-test. This is stuff we're going to talk about a little bit later, what those actually involve. But as you can see, we're going to have one group doing the traditional, one group doing the game sense over a 6-week period before we retest at the end. Now, one note to point out here, and again, this is still a bit of a grey area, but ideally, what we're going to do is identify where these individuals are within that peak height velocity curve. Are they pre-puberty? Have they been through their growth, or are they in the middle of it currently? In an ideal world, we're going to try and even up these groups to have the same amount of those, or as much as we can in each of the groups. And the reason for that will become clear a little bit later. So we're running these for 6 weeks, 2 groups side by side, hopefully with similar peak height velocity ages within them. So before I'll gather up all of these research questions and we'll talk about them separately first, and then I'll sort of bring them all together again at the end. But the main question I want to answer is what method of coaching, so is it the traditional or the game sense, is the most effective at improving sprint performance. So what I want to see is either of these two methods any better than the other one at, first of all, improving sprint performance? And we measure that through nice and simple, our sprint times. Are they faster? Based on the work we've done. All right, we're looking at probably a 5, a 10, and a 30, all in the one, to give us some different distance times. And second to that point, we also want to identify if either of those coaching methods are any better or any different in altering the determinants of speed. And this is the things we're looking at, the forces and also the kinematics as well. So, apart from looking at sprint times, we'd like to look at some force data. Now, there's a couple of problems that have arisen already in our thoughts. The first one being we want to do it in class time, so the availability of the force plate and getting them here. Again, this is something we have to talk about with the school. But we came up with an idea that perhaps because they do borders at this school, we might be able to take those borders and use them as a sample of the sports data. We might be able to do that outside of class time possibly. So obviously with that, we'll be looking at our vertical and horizontal ground reaction forces and how they might change pre and post our coaching. Alongside that kinetic data, if it is possible, we also want to look at some kinematic data, predominantly these key 4 things: the contact time, the flight time, step frequency and step length, in particular those last 2. There's some research surrounding those, stating that one or both of those are more important at different stages of peak height velocity, so we can look at that thing. Now the way we want to measure that kinematic data is actually through a system we don't have here. We're trying to source the opto-jump system, which is basically 2 tracks. It does a lot of laser stuff, and it gives us this data a lot easier than having to record it on a high-speed camera and do it manually. So I'm currently in talks with people via email with that. We've got something back today. So if we get that, that'd be awesome. If not, we're going to have to do the old high-speed camera 3D modeling if we can. So long story short, with this question, we want to know, have we changed how they run in that 6 weeks period? Have we changed anything? All right, now we've got a couple of follow-up questions here we're going to go alongside this. The second one here, we want to know if coaching these fundamental movements associated with linear speed have a transfer of learning to other fundamental movements. Now, like I said, sprinting is just this vehicle that we're using to identify these different coaching methods and how effective they are. There's research out there currently that suggests that these longitudinal kinetic-based studies looking at strength training and plyometric training have an effect on both sprinting and jumping performance. So if you can improve your strength or your plyometric strength, you get benefits in both. Now what I'd like to see is taking out those kinetic changes. If we can change how they run, is there a crossover effect or a transfer of learning between that sprinting and jump performance as well? One of the other fundamental movements I stated earlier. So to measure this, what we're going to do is simply do some vertical jumps and standing long jumps. And these will be done unilaterally. And the reason behind that is we've identified that sprinting is a repetitive unilateral movement. There's some research that suggests that the crossover between unilateral and bilateral isn't as good as some think. So if we can make it as specific as we can with these, it'd be even better. So standing single leg vertical jumps and single leg standing long jumps. We also want to have a look at tuck jump assessment, which is some really good research on at the moment, making it really easy to look at. And second to that, that is a bilateral movement, which might provide us with some different data. But really, it's not providing much more strain on our participants than anything else. So yeah, basically what I'm looking at with here, is there a kinematic transfer of learning between the running movements that we're working on and then the jumping based stuff as well. Right, now we're only going to be looking at the performance aspect of that, simply have they gotten better. At this stage we're not going to look at how they're jumping, have they changed angles, have they changed depths, all that sort of stuff. That might come a little bit later. Thirdly, and this is where our peak height velocity comes back into play, does the stage of their peak height velocity impact the coaching that we've done? So what we're saying is are the people who are pre-peak height velocity, or post, or during, have any of those groups been affected any differently than the others? Have the people post-peak height velocity, have they improved better than the others? So this is simply going to be measured by the performance measures, the kinetics and the kinematics that we've already identified earlier. And the last one, and I think in this case one of the more important questions to ask, especially if we're looking long term to apply these things, is which coaching method with our traditional game sense promoted participation, interest and excitement in the athletes. So which one did they actually enjoy doing? And we all know that if people are enjoying doing certain things, they're more likely to continue with it. And the way we're going to measure this is actually really cool. I hadn't heard about this until recently, but there's a survey that's been presented and it's been peer-reviewed and put in the journals around how it's a valid measure of individuals' fun and enjoyment during physical activity. Oh, that was awesome. It's a legitimate way to measure fun. It's something we've been talking about in my coaching class quite a lot. This is some sort of tangible results here. So we want to try and utilise that, or at least a variation of that, to give us some data here. And again, that'll be helping us look long term. So just to summarise that pre-test and post-test stuff, now this is just bringing together those tests that we've talked about in those last few slides. My pre-test and post-testing days will look something like this. All done within, at this stage, by my calculations, 60 to 90 minutes. That's all we need to get all of this stuff done. In order to get our performance times, our force plate readings if possible, and our opto jump kinematics, so these first three here, we're simply going to be running a couple of sprint trials. We can collect all that data within those 3 trials or so. We've got our unilateral vert jumps and standing long jumps, our tuck jump assessment, and finally that peak height velocity data that we'll have to collect at the start. All right, there's some research surrounding that utilises standing height, sitting height and limb length to calculate approximately where that growth spurt might occur with these individuals, or where they might be on that scale. So that's something that we're looking to utilise for this. And then finally we've got our surveys that we'll do post-intervention to see how they've done or how they've enjoyed their experience. We also have floated the idea of doing post-session surveys to see if we can get more information out of not only as a whole how was it, but how was that particular session, which might help us frame this up a little bit later. The data collection side of it, we've got the analysis of data. This is where I'm hoping for a bit of your expertise. But we're just going to be comparing pre and post, so we'll be looking at things like our effect sizes and confidence intervals. But that is where I'm going to need a bit of input from some outside influences, hopefully. Now that sounds like a lot of questions, so what I've done is I've summarised these here. These are what I want to answer with my study. First of all, can we change the way people sprint through the use of coaching? So over a 6-week period, can we actually change anything in the way they sprint? Second of all, which coaching method is the best way to do that, based on the two we're looking at? I want to identify if there's a transfer of learning from the sprint training to the jump training, to the jump performance. Does the peak height velocity and the stage that they're in affect the rate of learning? And finally, which coaching strategy promotes participation and enjoyment? There's 5 key questions there that we can use the data we've achieved and that we'll get to hopefully answer those questions. In terms of why, just a couple of brief applications for this stuff. Obviously, if we can identify the best coaching practice to maximise the learning, we can implement this everywhere. How are we teaching people? Why are we not doing this somewhere else? We also might know, in terms of the sprinting to start with anyway, when the best timing of these coaching things might happen. So those windows of opportunity, we'll know from here where coaching the speed might be the best time. And we'll also identify the mechanisms behind the change if we get a change. So not only, yes, they are getting faster, but hopefully we'll understand a little bit about why. Future research, I mean, this is kind of setting out for a lot of different things. We could research the same sort of concepts in other movements, whether it be sports specific or other fundamental movements. There's obviously longitudinal studies of interventions that you could do, running simply things like running a movement program over 2 terms versus running a gym program over 2 terms versus running both concurrently. We could do some comparisons across there, which gets the best results ultimately. But yeah, so there's a few applications for it, just briefly off the top of my head there. So I guess what I'd like to do now is open the floor. I've seen Lynn taking a few notes, which is great, and just see what you guys think, your opinions, and maybe some thoughts about how this can be developed further, or maybe some possible concerns that you can identify.
Nice, Rex. Do you see any potential barriers in the sessions with the non-experienced, the control group?
The traditional one?
Yeah.
Buy-in?
How will you alleviate such issues?
By coaching it really well. That's it. So we're looking at a coaching intervention. I can't just throw some random person in there to take the sessions, tick the boxes. So I've already approached 1 or 2 people who I think might be appropriate to run those sessions and run them well. Without sounding negative, at the end of the day, if that is the case and people don't buy in and start not turning up or not doing it properly, that kind of still gives us data, if you know what I mean? Although maybe not for our intervention, but for our reasoning behind why we chose a particular coaching style at the end.
So that then give you the enjoying factor?
Yeah, well, that kind of contributes to that.
Yeah, by default.
Yeah. We're trying to avoid the crap out of that, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to how it's taken. So, decisions are very important.
How much do you think personality of facilitator might play a role in the engagement / enjoyment of the sessions?
Heaps. And again, I'm hoping this is where our survey is going to come into it. So did they enjoy the session, or did they enjoy the delivery? Hopefully we can get some of that data out of those.
Is there the piece of the weakness need to improve? It's just the
fun.
There is some components in the old, but again, I don't know if we're going to use that one straight out or if we can manipulate that somehow to suit this particular area.
Just try to know much more use it.
Yeah.
If it works.
So you're going to use different people to do these sessions, not you?
That's going to depend on the school. So if I can get a class and get these groups split evenly in the class, I can't take 2 sessions at once. But if those groups don't mold the way we want it to be, I'll be doing class by class, and I can take one of those sessions if need be.
It should be easy to manage, right? So you can serious skill taken out as opposed to
Yeah, just 12 different places. But yeah, so the way that these groups are structured is still kind of down to what we can get from school.
From that perspective, knowing the school you're working with, running a roster or a cycle that is working around 6 to 7 days roster, will you be able to get 2 sessions a week?
Again,
Was that the question?
Yeah, so
Yet to be
based
reached.
on what I've looked at here, we can run 6 sessions, 1 per week, or we can run 12 sessions. I'm okay with either of that. Ideally, I guess if we're looking at 12, give us more time, but then that kind of counters that and says, is that too much for them? Are they going to lose the enjoyment? So that's kind of something we're going to weigh up.
I'm just making sure I heard you right with the two approaches in terms of the coaching methods, and I think I did. Is it viable to have a third, which would be a combination of the two?
Yes, it is one. It depends on class numbers. I guess we can't really split them into groups of say 6, 3 groups of 6, but
In terms of the information that
Yeah,
we're giving,
yeah.
though, you know,
One session.
yeah, something to think about. Yeah, I agree.
and the other thing is, when you get down to 4 things, I'll just do 2. Where are you actually going with this? Like overall, like would you like to see this turned into some sort of program that actually reaches out to youth in New Zealand? Is that
Yeah, why not?
Is that your look?
Yeah, if we can get year 9 and 10 students, let's just say for example a 6-week running block, jumping block, throwing block, and they leave that era, and move better and take those out into their sports. It's a good thing, right?
Because, yeah, it is, and I totally agree. It's interesting. I'm sure I've said this before somewhere here. And like with Magic, we get these newbies. They come in, these 17, 18-year-olds every year, and they weren't barely able to run. They couldn't jump. They couldn't squat.
Yeah.
They couldn't move properly. So in actual fact, they had to spend a couple of years on the bench while you're actually bringing them up to speed. So if this can hurry that along, that's one. The other thing, if I look at football, which is one of our targeted sports, and if you look at New Zealand on the global stage, and there's probably a few that have cut through, like your Winston Reeds, Marco Rojas, even Ryan Nelson, you'd argue he was slow. And the problem with our footballers, Russell, you probably agree, we tend to be slow. We play a really slow defensive game. And you said something about a window in terms of developing speed. Well, maybe. And this could tie in with what we're doing. We want to be a global, but if you could come up with something to get us faster, find the key. Expect our fourth coaching approach.
But if we can identify maybe which style is better, which one works better in terms of results and enjoyment, as I said, that's a key factor here in the long term of it. Then that gives us grounds to say, look, this is what we found. Can we implement this style of coaching into classes, into the school, or a term block?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Year 9 and 10. So instead of their symposium last year, they talked about gait, 75% of gait being fixed by the time people are 13 or whatever. So there was, I remember there being a fact and wow.
Yeah.
This year 9 and 10, we did the right group.
You're saying am I too late?
Yeah.
Interesting. I have to look at it.
So there was something that was come up there, Woodbury, I think. One of those guys was, but it was a really interesting fact that stuck in my mind.
Yeah. It's a good number. 25%.
Did you agree with that with football? I know I'm sort of harping on a bit here. But like you see us and we plod around. You compare to any of even the English club sides, God almighty, even the Scottish club sides. We do. We're slow. We are.
The problem though, if you try and compare it to English football, is that a lot of English football isn't actually English now.
True.
Because you've got such an influx. But I think they do spend, certainly you spend a lot of time looking at movement, it seems. That's quite a big buzzword and almost a big culture in the UK at the moment. Yeah. Whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. And it's how you interpret movement. Like you mentioned the term movement specialist quite early on, and that people are sort of branding themselves as this. But your movement might look great, but you could still be crap at the sport you're doing. You can move really well,
True.
but it doesn't necessarily transfer to what you're doing.
Yep.
Whereas I think if you're looking at what you're looking at, which is speed, like that's going to be beneficial regardless of the sport you play. If you move a bit better and if you are faster, you're just better equipped.
I think you summarised it up quite nicely in terms of multifactorial reasons why people are moving worse. And I think it's been summarised quite highly that sport-specific movements are also quite limited. I see it in hockey, we've seen it in football, we've seen it in netball. Are we looking at, is this intervention looking more generic in terms of speed as it underpins any sport?
100%.
As a
So
development?
there's stuff like at the moment there's this big thing around getting these guys into the gym earlier. By no means am I saying that's a bad thing. Like getting your 9s and 10s in the gym doing bodyweight movements and all that sort of stuff. Sweet, all good with that. But what I'm suggesting is that yes, those movements are important, but are you then skipping those really fundamentals of being able to run, jump and throw? They're key factors in most team sports. Sweet, you can squat well, so you can train well, but is that the best use of the time maybe? And that's maybe where the longitudinal stuff comes in comparison.
What do you expect to see?
No idea.
Which one of the two do you think? We know that the game-based one would probably be more fun. Versus traditional.
Looking down the track, man, this is where it sort of stemmed from with these coaching things. Down the track, often you're seeing more traditional style coaching.
Yeah.
Right? And you see the athletes look better over the season. Now what I want to know is, are they getting faster because of the repetitive sprinting they're doing? Or are they getting faster because of their efficiency with their movement now? I don't know. We're seeing changes and I kind of want to know if it's just the movement coaching itself, what are we actually changing? What am I to expect? Sorry to answer that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be one. It could be the fact they might look better, but they're not even faster. And then we have to look at the fact and say, so what are we actually doing here? Are we preventing injury? This is something that I thought about, but to be able to quantify that here is quite difficult. But by moving better, are we reducing the risk of injury? I don't know. That could be again something future.
Interesting, because one of the criticisms of the movement competency screen that everybody does with everyone is that in actual fact it's not really your basic movements. Your basic movements are, you're jumping, you're landing, can you run, so in actual fact it's even coming down from that.
Yeah.
So, and yet that's done on everyone across the, all our students are out there movement competency screening every man and dog.
Yes.
Well, that's what they will come to. What test you go on with? That's what they'll tell me they're going to do.
Either way, I think it's a very good area to look at, a very topical area, and I think very future-proof wise, it's very important that it is looked at from a different point of view than the traditional picking up my strength, being able to jump higher. The actual coaching style, I think, is.
I like it, mate. It's really well integrated centre. And this area of performance science for us in terms of why addictive is completely so. It's actually the results of your outcomes of your research is going to get something tangible that we can hang your head on. And if we are to, I think it's cross-codal, and that's a good point that lots of sports need that. I'm involved with kids sports and none because I get to that age, you just see ones that are probably come on the ones that are good for it. So it's so topical, and we need to come up with some good solutions that's going to be so transferable.
And it complements what they're doing at Athlete Nation, I believe, because it's a step below.
Well, that's like we're hoping more science-based than some of the research is going into it.
Yeah.
And it's very specific to the speed.
So like I said, the speed is just that window that we've got, and it was appropriate. We could easily look at jump movements or something if this was the right time to look at it. But the speed is just kind of our vehicle to look at these things. I guess, is there any hurdles or things that you guys can see that we might have to jump through? Where am I going to get stuck here?
The only hurdle I see is that because you're coaching, the session can be fun, right? So I look at sort of coaching. Some coaches are not fun. And that's why I see that if you're taking both sessions, you can make it fun. But if someone's taking one, someone's taking 8 on a good facilitator.
Yeah.
Which I think was a question that came up, you know.
I think it'll be a crossover. You might take one fun one not fun one. Next week crossover with a person, and then they're getting to experience both facilitators. Maybe there'll be a way to mitigate any problems.
Yeah.
Hey Riggs, awesome as always, mate. I'm going to leave, but I think what I like about this is it's novel to the centre in the sense it's assessing facilitation and delivery and gauging experience, which we never do. We always look at the hardcore, are you faster, are you stronger, all those sort of performance elements. And what's really great is that with kids, it is about fun and it is about engaging them, so it's going to be, I think this is quite a novel idea for us.
Especially that last one. Especially that last one.
Cool. Enjoy the weekend, guys.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how to frame it. I think it's really cool. I think like just building off the back of what Pete said, I think this idea of almost like your style of delivery is really important because from going in presenting like if you presented the same lecture every day of the week, you're going to present it differently depending on the audience that's in front of you. And I maybe see that as a hurdle. Like how do you even generate or plan a session to be fun, and how do you ensure that those who you're delivering it to are experiencing it as a fun thing? Because what's fun for us, or what we maybe have enjoyed, we've been around athletics for ages, that could be very different.
Sure.
Because we're both like performance orientated, despite enjoying what we're doing. So it's I think that's maybe a something that you.
So how we quantify fun, how we keep it consistent.
Yeah.
I agree, and that might be a hurdle we go through at that point. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not done on purpose, but it is the last of the 5 questions I want to answer. If we can get that data, awesome.
Yeah.
But if we can't, if it doesn't seem to work because of whatever reason, and we've still got the rest of these here to answer that gives us some nice tangible data.
Yeah.
And this kind of comes down to our qualitative stuff. It's a bonus if we can.
Just for my clarification, are we looking at field U players, or we're also looking at some implements coming in here, maybe like hurdles, balls?
Oh yeah, we'll be incorporating whatever
Cool,
we can
okay.
to focus on those key movements, arm movements, knee movements, force application, quick feet, those key concepts that are vital based on this 1980s literature at this point. How can we make those movements, or how can we fit those in and throw them as coaching the best?
Maybe 1980s becomes 2017. Not this.
If it works, doesn't it? That's
That's
the watch it.
Good guys.
Thank
Thank you very much for the feedback.
Great stuff.
Appreciate it.
Hey.
Well done, mate.
Mate, that's